Hi there, and welcome to this day in history for February 20th. February 20th is the 51st day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, with 314 days remaining to the end of the year, unless it's a leap year, in which case there are 315 days remaining to the end of the year. Today's word is metropolitan. Metropolitan is an adjective, typically, relating to or characteristic of a city or a large urban area. This word comes to us from Greek metropolis, which means mother city. A person who lives in a metropolis or a city is also called a metropolitan. So this word can be used as an adjective or a noun. Also, in the Eastern Orthodox Church, this title is given to a position between bishop and patriarch, somewhat equivalent to an archbishop in Western Christianity, metropolitan. I'd like to take a moment to mention that links to my research are included in the show notes, and to ask you to go ahead and click that like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and stick around for the outtakes. You can let me know your thoughts in the comments section, and you could share this video either with a link in an email or through your social media. And with that, let's get started in the year 1792, when President George Washington signed the Postal Service Act, regulating the United States Post Office Department, guaranteeing the inexpensive delivery of newspapers, and granting Congress the ability to expand postal service to new areas of the nation. In 1872, the Metropolitan Museum of Art opened in New York City. That is an amazing museum, by the way, let me tell you. It's got 3 locations in Manhattan now. I've been to the main one on 5th Avenue. I remember there were things that I had studied in my college art history class that I knew that they had there that I particularly wanted to see. And so I came upon this idea. What I would recommend to anyone who's thinking about going to see the Metropolitan Museum of Art, get on the internet first, go to their website, and locate the items you're particularly interested in, whether it's specific items or a particular genre or time period. Find those online and look at the map of the museum, see where it is within the museum, and then when you get there, you can go straight to that area and see those things first, and then spend the rest of your day looking at whatever you can get seen before your time runs out. It's a huge museum. I'm glad I did that because I might have missed those things that I was so interested in. It's easy to get distracted by all the other amazing, beautiful, interesting sections at the beginning of the museum. I just want to say that it is entirely one thing to see an amazing work of art in a textbook, and quite another to see it in person. Certainly encourage you to go if you have the chance, if you're interested in art. February 20th, 1902 is the birthday of American photographer and environmentalist Ansel Adams. He lived to the age of 82. I found it interesting that we have NASCAR in this day in history over the last few days. I'm sure you'll remember. Well, it is that today is the birthday of race car drivers Bobby Unser, born in 1934, and Roger Penske, born in 1937. How about that? This next one is kind of creepy, and I was really surprised to learn about it. But on February 20th, 1939, about 20,000 Americans held a Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden. This took place about 6.5 months before Hitler invaded Poland. This group was countered by about 100,000 protesters outside. On February 20th, 1942, pilot Edward O'Hare became the first American World War II flying ace. He got a Medal of Honor for his actions, and in 1949, Chicago officials named the O'Hare International Airport after him. Today's the birthday of someone we've seen in the news a bit lately, American politician Mitch McConnell, born on February 20th, 1942. Patty Hearst was born on February 20th, 1954. We've mentioned her before. On February 20th, 1962, John Glenn became the first American to orbit Earth. I remember this. I was in grade school at the time. We watched part of it on TV. Pretty big deal. His ship was called Friendship 7. True, there had been other men in space before. You had Gagarin and Titov for the Russians, and Alan Shepard and Gus Grissom for the Americans. By the way, I met Gus Grissom's son and grandson up in Oklahoma a few years ago. But back to today's story. The Russians were getting ahead of us in the space race, and we needed a multi-orbit flight. John Glenn fulfilled that order very nicely, lifting off from Cape Canaveral on February 20th, 1962. He made 3 orbits of Mother Earth and was in space for almost 5 hours, like 4 hours and 55 minutes. I'm sure it was exhilarating, and there was also some uncomfortable and scary stuff, but he got back okay. American model and businesswoman Cindy Crawford was born on February 20, 1966, and the late Kurt Cobain in 1967. On February 20th of 1985, the Irish government approved the sale of contraceptives against the wishes of the Catholic Church. February 20, 1997, Kramer on Seinfeld adopted a stretch of fictional highway, bringing attention to the real-life Adopt-A-Highway program. The Adopt-A-Highway program began in Texas, of all places. An engineer had noticed stuff blowing out the back of a truck, and he was concerned about the growing costs of the government being able to keep the roadways clean, so he got the idea to ask community groups to volunteer to pick up trash along sections of local highways that they could adopt. It didn't really take off right away, but then a public information officer got hold of the idea, and he was able to organize a program complete with training and equipment for volunteers. This program has spread to thousands of towns and cities across the United States and even up into Canada, over in Japan, and New Zealand. Fortunately, the actual Adopt-A-Highway program has been much more successful than Kramer's fictional foray into the program. It was an episode of Seinfeld, after all, and Kramer, so if you've ever seen an episode of Seinfeld, I'm sure you can imagine about how it probably went. On February 20th, 1998, an American 15-year-old girl named Tara Lipinski became the youngest gold medalist in women's figure skating at the Olympic Winter Games in Japan. And I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Remember that the links to my research are included in the show notes. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And feel free to share this. You can put a link in your email or on your social media. While you're here, check out my other channel, 8 Susquehanna. There's a link to that in the show notes as well. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Ready? Remember, those outtakes are coming right up. All right, just read that over. I'll have to go take a look at that again. So many mistakes. We're not going to go into all that. Okay. This is what happens when we go off script. I don't know how all that's going to go together, or if it's even going to make it to the video. We'll just see. That's not going to go. Probably cut all that out. That'll all be laying on the cutting room floor. So I'll just do that whole thing over. That might not make it into the video. We'll see. Changing it up.